a sale that harmed the Quebec economy.
For Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to first explain that I am sharing my time with the member from Nunavut today. Thank you. I'm pleased to rise today to speak on the motion in the name of my esteemed colleague from Cowichan, Malahat, Langford. I want to commend him on his excellent advocacy on behalf of workers and producers in the agricultural sector. I want to also commend our leader, the member from Burnaby South, for his unwavering fight to force CEOs and big corporations to pay what they owe and tackle corporate greed that has gouged families in every corner of our country. As more and more people struggle to make ends meet, wealthy CEOs are raking in record profits. To make matters worse, workers' wages are not keeping up with these rising profits or inflation. The motion we are debating today is a logical and responsible response to alleviate the burden being placed on workers, families, seniors, and Canadians as a whole by closing the tax loopholes this government and their Conservative counterparts continue to support, allowing these already wealthy CEOs and big corporations to avoid paying $30 billion in taxes in 2021 alone. After 7 years in government, the Liberals continue to allow the ultra-rich CEOs and large corporations to avoid paying their fair share, who, while making these profits, are stagnating the wages of workers and increasing prices. 7 years of promises to be there for people, to have large corporations pay their fair share, to instead to be where we are today, with large corporations continuing to benefit off the backs of everyday Canadians. While the Conservatives continue to make noise, they continue to prop up the ultra-rich while leaving people behind. The Conservatives will always have the backs of their wealthy friends, not those who need it most. While the new Conservative leader was minister, for example, the Conservatives cut the tax audit of the wealthiest and prioritized excessive CEO profits. While the Conservatives fight against children having dental care, they step back and prop up the Liberals to continue, as they always have, refusing to have those making the most pay their fair share. My NDP colleagues and I continue to fight for people, as we always have. Instead of sitting idly and continuing with the status quo of the rich getting richer, we continue to pressure the Liberals to make the wealthiest CEOs pay what they owe and to stop the price gouging they are doing to people. I want to take a moment and bring it back to look at what we are talking about exactly. While Canadians pay the price for rising food, billionaire Galen Weston, chairman of Loblaw, which includes stores like Superstore and Extra Foods, has increased dividends to shareholders from $118 million to $125 million by 2022. While shareholders reap the profits, more and more Canadians are having to cut back on the amount of food they buy. As a matter of fact, 23.6% of Canadians in a recent survey identified having to do so. We are not talking about Canadians having to cut back on luxuries here. We are talking about Canadians having to cut back on the basics: bread, milk, meats, fruits, and veggies. Canadians not having access to nutritious foods impacts us all. Prior to entering federal politics, my work was focused on the many symptoms of poverty and fighting for those who have the least to access their most basic human rights, such as a home, food on the table, and head-to-toe health care that they deserve. I worked front lines with those who are almost always forgotten in the decisions being made by this federal government. The decisions made here in this very chamber impacts the lives of Canadians in endless ways. Every decision is an opportunity to do better, and this is even more true at a time when so many are struggling to make ends meet. And children are among those most impacted by these decisions. In my riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith, over half of children of lone parent families live in poverty. Over half. Imagine for a moment being a parent, working hard to provide for your children, yet regardless of how hard you work, the money coming in does not cover even the most basic expenses. To make matters worse, the cost of living continues to increase, leaving you further behind than you were when you began. I understand firsthand the frustration and hopelessness parents trying to give your kids the best start in life experience, yet feeling that all the systems surrounding you have set you up for failure. No matter how hard you work, you're always worried about how you're going to keep a roof over your head, healthy food in your kids' stomachs, and transportation even to school. Yet children in Canada, who will one day be the ones to make decisions about our well-being, are often an afterthought. There's no reason why children in Canada should not have access to healthy, nutritious foods. We know healthy foods are essential to the development and learning of children. Yet, while working in schools and having the honor to serve as a school board trustee, I saw too many children show up to school hungry. This impacted children in endless ways, seeing increased behaviors and challenges in learning. And now we know the number of children showing up to school hungry continues to increase. I'm thankful for the work of so many on the ground in my riding of Nanaimo-Ladysmith who continue to do what is best for our communities, despite the challenges that are being faced. I think of Nanaimo Food Share as one example, who continues to provide what they call good food boxes. These boxes are offered on a pay-as-you-can basis to members of the community and include 7 to 9 varieties of whole fruits and vegetables, all packed and provided by the hard work of local volunteers. I think of the Ladysmith Resource Centre Association, who offers a food recovery program that collects foods from commercial production and distribution channels and redistributes this food to those in need. We know those using food banks are disproportionately women, children, Indigenous and racialized individuals, and those living with disabilities. Loaves and Fishes Community Food Bank in my riding of Nanaimo-Ladysmith has distributed 2.4 million pounds of food valued at $6.5 million to people on Vancouver Island directly or through First Nation communities, nonprofits, food banks, and schools. Clearly, as Canadians, we carry on the deep-rooted values of taking care of one another. But the onus of responsibility should not be laid on the shoulders of members of our communities. We need federal leadership that prioritizes people first, not the profits of rich CEOs. The trickle effect of the lack of federal leadership can be felt at every level: provincial and territorial, municipal, First Nations, and even school boards. Our municipal and school boards, for example, should not be left to pick up the pieces where their government has failed with minimal resources to do so. Nobody benefits from this. It's not just the children who are impacted by this government's inaction. The number of seniors trying to make ends meet with low fixed incomes while costs continue to increase is also on the rise. In 2018, 12% of seniors in Nanaimo were living in poverty, and we know that this number has seen steep inclines since 2018. I heard from a senior recently who wrote to me and said, "I am a senior who is just trying to live on a fixed income. Rent increases, cost of food, just too much to list. We were the people who helped build this country, and we need some help, please." There's also those who get up in the morning and head to work daily to provide for families and are also unable to make ends meet. It is sad to see so many working hard day in and day out and still struggling. This is just not right. The costs of so many struggling impacts us all in many ways. We know that as the number of people struggling to make ends meet increases, so does the needs within our healthcare system, as just one example. When we take care of one another and remain proactive with the ways in which we do so, we all benefit. It costs us all to leave people behind. This is why the motion we are debating today is so important. While so many are going hungry in our country, wealthy CEOs are making record profits. It is time we force CEOs and big wealthy corporations to pay what they owe so this money can go back where we need it most, back to people. It is time to launch an affordable and fair food strategy which tackles corporate greed in the grocery sector, that includes a full investigation into grocery chain profits, while increasing ways in which we can hold them to account for abusing their positions for gain. It is time to remember that the decisions we make today impact people and that nobody benefits when we line the pockets of the ultra-rich at the expense of Canadians. I'm happy to vote in support of this motion to do what is right for people, and I hope my colleagues in this chamber will do the same. Thank you, Madam Speaker.